Is baby reindeer fat phobic? This is a question I've seen being debated on a few pages and accounts of people I respect, and I wanted to take this seriously. I am personally uninterested in leveraging people's prejudices or relying on those kinds of tropes to form character in literature or film. I just think it's cheap and it's lazy. And I also don't want to live in a culture where people are instantly summed up and judged and dismissed based on their appearance, their body size, whether they meet certain conventions, whether or not they're racialized as not white, all those things. I want to live in a society where we show up and get to be whole and engage with each other as individuals and humans and respect each other's backgrounds and experiences. That's where I want us to go as culture makers. So I actually think this question, is baby reindeer fat phobic, is something we should grapple with, especially since baby reindeer on so many other accounts is nuanced, complicated storytelling that doesn't reduce people who have differences to scary tropes or lazy tropes. In one of the first trailers I saw for Baby Reindeer, and this is actually one of the reasons I first started watching it, there is a scene where this woman, a fat woman in her 40s, walks into the bar, and the bartender, who's the main character, Richard Gadd's character, says to himself, I felt sorry for her. That was my first condescending, arrogant reaction when I first laid eyes on her. And so immediately I had a bit of a reaction because I, as a viewer, am watching a fat middle-aged woman walk into a bar and someone's feeling sorry for her. And as a fat middle-aged woman, that elicits some kind of reaction in me, like, oh, okay, we just summed up, we see something about a character. So I immediately actually wanted to watch it, even though I was irritated, because I was like, let's see how they handle this. Then there's another second or two in the first episode when this fat middle-aged woman tells the bartender, Richard Gadd's character, that she's a barrister, she's a lawyer. And you see the look of skepticism on his face, and she catches it, and there's a reaction. She's really an extraordinary actress. That also grabbed me because I thought, oh, are we relying on fat phobia here to make the assumption that a fat woman cannot be a successful woman, cannot be an accomplished woman? I know lots of fat women who are enormously talented, skilled, and at the tops of their field, highly respected, making heaps of money. So to make the association between fat and broke and fat and stupid and fat and unsuccessful is just a lazy, fallacious association. So those are the two things that grabbed me right away and irritated me right away. And here's what's important. For the overall series, I didn't actually see that that was the equation being made or that that was the dots being connected. So yes, I reacted to it in those two little split seconds, and that's not accidental. But the series as a whole wasn't making that equation. Really, what Richard Gadd's character was making some assumptions about wasn't about her fatness, it seemed to me. It was about the fact that she was showing up and saying she didn't have money for tea. So if you're a lawyer, how do you not have money for a cup of tea? And that she was saying she was a lawyer, and yet she's spending all day sitting in a bar. So it wasn't necessarily about her fatness, that there was a question and a skepticism. It was about all the things surrounding. It was even about her body language and the way she presented herself and how she was volatile and erratic and violating social norms. Those were the sources of skepticism for all of that. Not to say that the fatness wasn't a part of it, because we all live in the same society where a fat woman is not considered as attractive or all of those things. But I didn't feel like the show was leveraging that or luxuriating in it. It was just a fact. What I thought was interesting about this whole series is I didn't feel like her fatness was a character. So in a lot of series where women have big bodies, their fatness becomes a main character plot point, and it's constantly something that is remarked upon, that they're wrestling with. I didn't see that happening in this series at all. And I didn't see that the character's revulsion towards this fat woman who ends up doing some really terrifying things. I didn't see that the fatness was part of his revulsion or his fascination with her. her vulnerability, the way that she saw him, her volatility, the way that she was clearly lying about things. Those were the sources of the revulsion. And even when he's explaining to the audience in his voiceovers, even when he's wrestling with his own thoughts about her, his lack of attraction to her, it didn't seem to me, was ever about her big body. It was about her age or it was about her volatility. But I never heard him say anything about her fatness or taking that apart and really resting on it. And even the way that the other obnoxious men in the bar, including his coworkers, treated her, they never overtly said stuff about her body, which doesn't mean that it's not fat phobia, but it just felt to me like fat phobia wasn't one of the plot devices in the series. And so it was a complicated, nuanced portrayal of a reality. There's a certain way that large bodies are treated in the world, and this definitely happened in this series. But it wasn't fat phobia porn or this woman is miserable because of her body. It seemed to me that this woman is miserable because she is mentally unwell. And the fatness isn't the driving point of her desperation, her depression, her mental instability. That wasn't the situation. I also didn't see the camera tracking or panning on her body in a way that seemed to be voyeuristic or, making a point about how unattractive she was. It was just sort of prosaic, factual, like the camera's following her because she's walking out of the bar, just like the camera follows him when he's walking down the street. So I didn't see a difference in the way that she was filmed and the way thinner characters were filmed. So when I'm looking at all of this, I didn't actually feel like the series was fat phobic. I thought it was wrestling with reality. And I actually thought that the narrative eye and the authorial eye that was following this character and shaping this character wasn't shaping it around fat phobia. And if we are having reactions to that, it's because we're having reactions to the society that we live in, which is indeed fat phobic, and into our internalized wounds and prejudice. Which is not to say that it's not there, but I'm just saying I've seen a lot of films where the main character or a supporting character who is fat, it becomes a plot device and a married development device. I didn't see that in this series. So in my humble opinion, or not so humble opinion, I don't think that the series was fat phobic. Of course, I'm willing to be wrong, and I'm super interested in other people's analyses of the situation, and I'll be following that. But for me, where I land in the body that I'm in, at the age that I'm in, right, I track with this character. I didn't think that it was biased or prejudiced or luxuriating in revulsion to fat middle-aged bodies.